Well, good morning once again. Today we're talking about grace in the garden. And as usual, my technology is giving me things to work with and to work through. So we will see how this works. But in the beginning, we know this story that God created. God spoke and light flashed, waters cooled, trees stretched their arms to the sky, and rivers ran down to the sea. I love that James Weldon Johnson, that poem. It's a beautiful poem if you have time to read the rest of it. But James imagines it like this, that the green grass sprouted, the little red flowers blossomed, the pine tree pointed their finger to the sky, and the oak spread out their arms. And then scripture tells us that God saw everything that God had made, and indeed it was very good. It wasn't just good, but it was very good. What does it mean that creation is not merely acceptable or useful, but very good? It means that at its core, creation is abundant, flourishing, diverse, and complete. And then the same God who made this very good creation entrusted this very good creation to us, to tend, to nurture, and to steward. Now, stewardship is not the same as ownership. Ownership clings and controls. Ownership says things like, this is mine, and I'll do with it whatever I want. Stewardship, on the other hand, is about care, right? It's about tending resources so that all creation flourishes. Stewardship means remembering that the earth is not ours to own or to do whatever we want to do with it, but it's God's gracious gift to us for us to tend. Now, when we forget that, when we mistake ownership for stewardship, creation is misused. Think of the trees. I love the trees. Trees were created to provide beauty, shelter, food, and oxygen. In this country, trees have been twisted into instruments of terror. Nina Simone sang of strange fruit, speaking of black bodies hung from branches. And even this week, there were a couple of hangings. One was Trey Reed, a black student he was found hanging on the campus of Delta State University. And then Corey Zucatis was a white student found hanging in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Right, so these trees that were created for life were misused for death. We can also think about water. God gave water to refresh and to nourish the earth. Yet, water has been stolen, polluted, and even commodified. Indigenous people know this very well. Rivers dammed, poisoned, and sold. Again, creation turned against the very people who honor it the most. When stewardship turns into ownership, abundance becomes weaponized. God's very good is twisted. But here's the truth. God's generosity shows up in a variety of ways, and it shows up in variety. Trees, plants, animals, water, the gifts of creation is diversity. And diversity demands diverse care. So anyone who knows plants, you know that you cannot tend a cactus the same way that you tend a fiddle fig leaf, right? I call fiddle fig leaves fickle fiddle fig leaves because, for the obvious reason. Right, one of these plants, they thrive on neglect. The other one on careful, consistent attention. Stewardship requires attentiveness, respect, and humility. Again, if you've ever had a fickle fiddle leaf plant, you understand humility. And what's true of the plants is also true of people. Each of us, we carry unique gifts. Good stewardship means that we're honoring those differences, we're tending to one another in ways that help all of us flourish. It's not about sameness, it's about recognizing that God has made a creation full of variety. And all of that variety is very, very good. Flourishing, after all, is not just about me, it's not just about you, it's about community. It's about us, it's about the whole garden. So what does it look like here at Cairn? I want to first acknowledge those who have served at this church faithfully for many years, those who have carried leadership, chaired committees, kept us moving. Your faithfulness is noble and needed, so we thank you. And stewardship is not only about tenure, it's not only about how long folks have been around, it's about everyone offering their gifts. Whether you've been here for decades or weeks, I would say a couple of days, but I'll give folks a couple of days to get settled in, right? But God is giving you something as well to add and to offer to this community. And I see it. I see it in the way that Cairn partners with Imagine, providing safe space for people with developmental disabilities. Leaders from Imagine, I met with them last week. They often talk about how kind and gracious and helpful Cairn has been to them. And that's stewardship, right? That's ways in which we offer shelter as part of creation's abundance. We have space, we have shelter for folks who need it. I also see this good stewardship in Cairn's long partnership with Community Food Share. Volunteers show up month after month to help distribute food to neighbors. We also give grocery gift cards out to community members who need them, right? And it's not out of pity, let's not think that way, but it's out of this shared abundance. We give because we have. We know that food is God's gift and we share it freely. I sit in the newly formed Caring Cares Fund, which we talked about a couple of weeks. It supports members in hardship. That's this Acts 2 coming alive. They had all things in common. And yes, stewardship looks like money. It does look like finances. It pays the salaries and keeps the lights on. It tends to the building. But if we look deeper, it is also about lives sustained. It's also about community that's being built, neighbors being fed, and justice being imagined. And right now, stewardship looks like beloved community. It looks like leadership, not just financial, but it's about showing up with your gifts, with your skills, with your wisdom. It's participating in the life and the stewardship of this congregation. Again, this is your community. You are present, you are needed here, and you are welcomed here. The truth is, the world is not being good stewards, right? This world is not being stewarded well, I should say. Creation is unraveling. I could list a lot of things, but I won't do that this morning. Inequality is deepening. Violence and greed distort what God has called, what? Very good. And sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, it feels overwhelming. We can often feel powerless. We can ask ourselves, what difference can one person or one small group of people make? What can we really do? But history reminds us that in every generation, when times have been tough, people have survived by leaning on one another. Groups and networks have always formed. They shared what they had. They tended to each other's gifts. They carried one another through. That's not just survival, y'all. That's stewardship. So the question for us today is, how will we embody this kind of community in challenging times? Now, I don't say this to invoke some sort of fear, and I don't say this to make people be afraid. I say it to speak faith, that we have what we need to be a faithful community. We have what we need to survive hard times. I say this because although times may be hard, it does not mean that, honestly, times may be hard and they may get harder. I'll be honest, right? We feel that. I feel it in my bones. But hard times call us to deepen our community and not to disband. It calls us to draw closer and not to scatter, right? We have what we need, right? We have what we need. And I think Cairn already knows how to do this very well. We are a beautiful, loving, diverse, inclusive, generous community. I'll say it again. We are a beautiful, loving, diverse, inclusive, and generous community. Our task now is to live even more fully into that identity. Right? How do we deepen that? To participate in the life and thriving of this church so that our legacy is not one of decline, but one of faithfulness. I believe that people are looking for who we are and what we have to offer, right? So what does Cairn look like in the future? What legacy will we leave? What work will we do? Well, the only way we're going to get there is with the folks who are present, with you and me, folks on Zoom. The only way we would get to this future life that we have imagined that we're talking about is if we all participate fully. Again, not out of scarcity, not because we're afraid, but out of abundance. because we remember the abundance of creation, that God created this garden, and that we are a part of the garden to tend and to share and to tend and to share. And this is where grace comes in. I know sometimes we can feel like, listen, I have enough on my own, right? Enough to deal with on our own. But grace is not just a pardon for sins or forgiving someone when they've done something wrong. Grace, again, is power. Grace is God's empowering presence in our lives. It's the Spirit reminding us that if God entrusts us with creation, we already have the resources that we need to care for it. If God has entrusted us with each other, then we have the resources that we need to care for each other. We have these internal resources, our gifts, our wisdom, our resilience. We have external resources, this building, this community, this land, our time, our money, and there may be other things as well. Grace in action reminds us that we are not powerless, but we are entrusted by the divine. We are empowered by grace, which is the ability to get things done. So I want you to know that I trust you, and I hope that you trust me, that we trust each other to weather through the season of change and transition, that together we can live more fully into this calling of being beloved community. And there is more ahead. In a few weeks, we'll celebrate our Green Chalice Covenant. We will talk about explicitly what it means to be about this work of creation care. But today is just a beginning. As we return to this image of the garden, God saw everything that God made, and indeed it was very good. It wasn't just good, it was very good. God delighted in God's creation. And I don't know about you, if you delight in something, you sometimes you may hold on to it kind of close. You don't necessarily want to give it away. Or if you share it with people that you trust. And so to think that God has trusted us with creation, God has trusted us with each other, and God sees us as very good, can be a little bit intimidating, if we're honest. But it can also feel empowering, right? That the divine, the creator of the trees and the sun and the moon and the stars, trusts us to care for it. Again, this earth is not ours to own, but it is God's grace to tend, and tending this garden takes all of us. And at Cairn, we believe that ministry is built in mutuality. We don't ask out of guilt. We don't ask out of guilt or shame, but out of love, right? That each of us has received something from this community, and each of us has something to give back, whether that's time, talent, treasure, presence, and that is how we will remain strong. So, beloved, I'm coming to a close. This is grace in action, right? I want you to take a moment in this, as we get to this next song, and think about your gifts, right? What has God entrusted you with? What is God giving you? Everybody has something that God has given them, right? And think about how you can share that gift, that grace, with this community. Again, this grace is in action. God entrusts us with a very good creation, and God entrusts us with one another. The prayer is that we can live into that trust with abundance, with courage, and with joy. Amen.